Hello and good evening. It's now 19:05 in London. I'm Nikki Scott.
And I'm Luke Addison. Thanks so much for joining us again. I'm sure you'll agree that we had a great session with Rotary International Director Peter Kyle last time, learning about Rotary's peace initiatives and Rotary's historical role as a peace-building organisation. Also, how Rotary was instrumental in creating the United Nations and still has a strong partnership with the UN today. Peter represents Rotary at the UN and other international organisations. As always, if you missed our last Together Talk with Peter Kyle, you can catch up on demand along with a total of 20 events from our 3 series so far, which are available on the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland YouTube channel. The whole objective of Together Talks is to ultimately provide a resource library for anyone to use at any time for a virtual meeting to invite others, Rotarians and guests, into discussion to inspire action.
Tonight, we are absolutely delighted to be joined by well-known actress Jenny Seagrove, who has worked in theatre, film and television for more than 40 years. She might not thank me for saying that. Finding fame in the popular film Local Hero and breaking records with A Woman of Substance in the 1980s. What is probably less known about Jenny is her passion for the natural world. She describes herself as an animal champion.
That's right. And Jenny's topic tonight is finding sanctuary in the natural world, treating each other with mutual respect. So in 2011, Jenny stepped in to help when a woman who had rescued many animals from terrible circumstances had got into financial trouble herself. And so she set up Main Chance Sanctuary as a charity with 41 horses, 2 sheep, a goat, hens, and a cow in its care. Jenny has always believed in the healing power of horses on humans, and that rescued animals, if treated with consideration and kindness, would prove to have a valuable role as helpers to those who need a little extra support with their own mental health. So, without further ado, let's learn a little bit more about Jenny through her introductory video.
I'm standing at Main Chance, and I have to say it's extremely cold, so forgive me. I've grown up with animals. Dogs were my passion. My family always had dogs, and they've given me joy, they've given me companionship, they've given me succor when I needed it, when I've been low, and I've seen how they've helped other members of my family and my friends. I know what, and we all know what, assistant dogs can do for us, and guide dogs and pat dogs, and I'm sure that there are many other kinds of animals, and just people's pets. They are so magnificent in what they give us humans. And since starting Main Chance 10 years ago, I've now realised what horses do for us, or can do for us. They're amazing. And they're no different from all of the pets that we know and love, except that you can't invite them into your home or have them sitting on your sofa. But we invite people, the old, the young, people with disabilities, people with mental health issues. They come here, and spending time with our horses just very often makes a huge difference in their lives. And it's a joy to be able to give these horses who've had terrible issues in their lives peace, tranquility and love, and then allow them to give back. It's a circle of care, and it's wonderful, and it's Main Chance.
Oh, that's lovely. So I think it's time to zoom Jenny in all the way from Beaconsfield, England this week. Hi, Jenny. Welcome.
Hi. Well, thank you so much. And I have to apologise for lockdown hair.
Oh, well, we're delighted you're joining us no matter what. So thank you.
Super. Thank you, Jenny. So we'll move things along, and we will offer you our Together Talks soapbox, please, Jenny.
Well, gosh, I grew up with animals. I grew up with dogs, and I was in Malaysia, and I occasionally played with baby orangutans and baby brown bears who'd been rescued. And so very early on, I learnt the joy of animals. My mother was a huge animal champion. And as I grew older, you know, I went to school, to boarding school, and I stopped, apart from on my holidays, being with animals. And then when I was a young actress, I had my own dog, which came everywhere with me. And gosh, when I needed her help, boy, did she give it to me. So dogs were always my passion. And when you live with an animal and you really share your life with it, you begin to understand that it's a totally sentient being. And then you start to look around you at other animals that you don't perhaps know so well. And I've always had a huge, huge love of the natural world. I find nature gives me huge wisdom. And who was it? There was an American Indian chief who said, we are all part of the web of life. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. And for many, many years now, I've been really quietly making choices and trying to, without being too aggressive about it, persuade other people to make choices that are good for the planet, that are good for animals, you know, just little things. Because if we all make little choices, they add up. For example, what you eat. If you can buy organic, that gives animals a better welfare and it's better for the planet. If you pay attention to palm oil, that perhaps means that the orangutans aren't losing their habitat so much. And then, as I said in my introduction, 10 years ago, I started Main Chance, and that was an absolute revelation to me, in that the virtual circle of care, well, it's not virtual, it's a real circle of care, because I'd ridden when I was younger and I knew horses, but I didn't really know them. And to stand alongside these extraordinary creatures, to be a part of their lives, to be able to watch them, observe them, listen to them, and by that I mean not literally listen to them, but hear what they were saying by understanding their language, which comes with just observation and knowledge, and then to make a difference to their lives, and then watch as the magic happened between them and some of the young people and the older people who visited Main Chance was truly, truly transformative for me and for other people as well. And I'm so excited to be able to come and share just a little bit of what I've learned with all of you out there.
Well, Jenny, thank you. There's a couple of immediate questions coming to mind, and one I'm going to start with is something you shared with us just in the briefing that we had ahead of this connection for Together Talks, and you shared that actually very early on in your childhood you always wanted to be a vet, and then somehow you changed courses to be an actress. So can you just take us back to the beginning and what happened there? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, whatever I wanted to do, it was always dependent on what book I'd just read. And then I settled on, I want to be a vet because I loved animals so much. And so I studied physics, chemistry and biology at A level, and I got them. And then literally I woke up one morning and I knew that I would be the world's worst vet because I was so sentimental about animals. I knew that I couldn't hold it together to put an animal down. And sometimes that's what you have to do to be kind, which was quite a shock, really. So then I thought, gosh, well, that's a change of direction. What am I going to do? I'm good at acting. I've always been an actor. I'm going to be an actress. And I remember telling my mother on the landing of our house, and she sort of went green and went, but you've always wanted to be a vet, darling. And I explained, and then she said, oh, okay. Well, if you're going to be an actress, you've got to either get, I think it was a secretarial course behind you or a cookery course. So she said, because, you know, actors don't work. She's very pragmatic and practical, my mum. And so I did. I went to Mrs. Russell's 3-star School of Cookery, got the cookery course behind me, and I've never had to use it, thank goodness. And I've had such an extraordinarily blessed life. I really do think I've been incredibly blessed. I went to the Bristol Vic Theatre School and I came out, I got my first job, and I sort of didn't stop from there. And I got fame very early, and I soon discovered that fame is pretty empty. And I determined from a very young age that because I felt blessed, wanted to make a difference. I didn't want to be a snobby, up my own bottom actor. I wanted to just be an ordinary person, because after all, we are all the same. Yes. And this virus has just put that right in front of us. Life doesn't stop and halt because you're a famous actor or a not quite so famous actor, but you know, it goes on and it sweeps you aside. And I wanted to be able to make a difference and as it were, give back for all that I'd been given.
How wonderful then to come full circle and find so much value and impact in the work you're doing now. And I just want to pick up on something that you mentioned on your soapbox, and because you referred to it there, is if you care for another sentient being, the inference is you can then start to care for yourself if you're able to care for a sentient being. Can you tell us, can we just deep dive into maybe some of the stories of some of the work you've done and with some people who've been in challenged situations?
Absolutely, absolutely. I do believe that if you are able to, in the Jungian sense, love yourself, and I don't mean selfishly, I mean that accept yourself with all your flaws, then you can care for others, love others, be kind to others. And we see that all the time at the sanctuary. We have young people coming who are coming from really chaotic home lives. Some of them have been abused, some have been abandoned and adopted and readopted. And actually that brings me to a story of a young man who was adopted. The adoption failed. He was then readopted. And they found, his grandparents actually found Main Chance as a sort of last resort because nothing else was working. And his adoptive parents couldn't hug him. They couldn't, he was filled with anger and fear because he was terrified of getting close and being hurt. And they came to the sanctuary, and very soon, because we always tell the stories of the horses, so we've got 3 colts who are now strapping geldings called Tinker, Tailor and Soldier. And horses somehow tend to get a feeling of what people need, and they reach out. They have a sense. I don't know how they do it, but they have a sense. I think it's their limbic systems are very closely aligned to ours. And Tailor became very interested in this young man, and the young man became very interested in Tailor. And so we spotted that, and he started working with Tailor, and we got him very slowly. We work at the horse's pace, we work at the human's pace. We got him hugging Tailor. And that was quite major, because this is a lad who didn't want to get out of the car the first visit to the sanctuary. And then we knew that the next step would be for his mother to hug Tailor at the same time. And then the step after that would be for the young man to hug his mother. And that happened. And it happened before the pandemic. And that's meant that the young man and his mum have been able to comfort each other so that when he has a meltdown, she's been able to hold him. And that was thanks to Tailor and the journey they took together.
That's super. That's absolutely lovely story. Over to you, Luke.
Super. Thank you, Jenny. So first of all, we've had a bit of a similar life. I wanted to be a vet when I was younger, all the way up until we took our puppy to get microchipped. And she was a bit of a drama queen anyway, but she squealed, hated it. And that day I decided there's no way I can be a vet because
I know that feeling.
So I went on to become an actor and became a drama teacher.
Oh,
so
wow. Yeah.
Not too similar, but not too different either.
I'd say it's very similar.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about having your own dog, your own companion, and that was where you kind of started to see a little bit of the sentience kind of aspect of the work that you do. But did you have a kind of personal experience yourself with another animal? Did you have a kind of healing experience yourself that you're using as inspiration for this work?
I've had many healing experiences with animals. I've had moments where I've been literally tears pouring down my face in my home, and my dog will come up and just sit next to me or come and actually try and lick the tears away. They sense it. I had a moment on the site at Main Chance where I was having a dreadful time. I mean, when you start something, and we had nothing excepting an awful lot of animals. So it was full of dramas and challenges the first at least 5 years. And Grimbo is a little Shetland pony there who I always go to when I need just a bit of comfort. He's my kind of main man. And I remember this one day I went over to Grimbo and I just sat very quietly next to him. And I swear to God, these words popped into my head: Jenny, you're forgetting to have fun. And animals communicate in many ways. They will show you, they will give you a feeling, you might even smell something, or you will hear words. And in this instance, I swear to God, he was talking to me. And I thought, yeah, he's absolutely right. I was forgetting to have fun. And it was very special. It was very moving. And I've had many, many of those experiences where you've just stood next to a horse and gone into that quiet space of semi-meditation and shared the space with them and been transported to somewhere else and been filled up with their energy, their love. I can't recommend being quiet with animals enough.
Beautiful. Oh, I think Luke might be frozen. in which case I'll come in with another one then, Jenny. I think it's just beautiful to hear you talk about it. And I think, you know, this mental health issues are such a major topic of conversation for very understandable reasons right now, you know, with the impact of the pandemic especially. But even before the pandemic, younger generations seem to have so much anxiety and so much pressure on them from overstimulation. So can you talk to us a little bit more about some of the stories of the work you're doing to help younger generations? And in fact, I think it's not just younger generations that you work with, right? But either way, both of those audiences, if you could talk to that.
We bring in elderly people from care homes who perhaps have gone into the care homes and have shut down, and some of them have horses in their backgrounds, and they hear that they might go and see a horse and they start to come out of themselves and just come back to life. But yes, you're absolutely right about mental health issues, and since the pandemic they have shot through the roof. But they don't, I mean, it's not just young people, although I believe that social media has an awful lot to answer for. And people have forgotten, in general, life is so fast, people have forgotten to slow down. They've forgotten how to breathe. They've forgotten to be in the moment. And actually, strangely, the pandemic has forced people back. But at Main Chance, what we have been teaching is a form of that mindfulness. We've created a Chance to Be course, which is we teach mindfulness to the young people. But the horses do it. In other words, if they want to help the horses and be with the horses, then they have to learn how to breathe, to calm themselves down, to regulate their emotions, and then they can start to help the horses and work with the horses. And another story, our pilot Chance to Be course, there was a girl of 13 at school, only she was about to drop through the cracks because she had gone mute. She decided that being mute meant that she didn't have to engage in school. She didn't have to be bullied. It was a way of just not having to do anything. And she was on the brink of being excluded. And the school added her to the Chance to Be 9 pupils that came on our pilot course. And something in her clicked when she was with the horses. And she started to re-engage. The school noticed that, and they rang us afterwards and they said, she's starting to really come out of herself with the horses. Could you take her on twice a week as a work experience? So we said, yes, we'd love to do that. And that kept going for a couple of years. And then when she was 16, the school said, would you take her on as an apprentice? And we looked into apprenticeships, but they're all about riding. We don't ride. But we found a contract that we could give her. And literally a month ago, she has started working for Main Chance. And because of her re-engagement, she'd got her maths and her English at a certain level, at functional skills level, and she continues to work on them because she has to do the daily report. She has to know what we're going to order. She knows she needs to use maths now, and she turns up on the 2.5 days a week. She comes to us, and we'll expand it because she's learning, you know, to be employed, and that's tough. But you know, halfway through, when she was 15, I remember there was a school day. And they'd invited Main Chance to have a stall. And she went home, got changed, came back, and was showing people around and telling people about Main Chance. And the school said they didn't know how to talk to her. They didn't even recognize her, because this was a girl who was chatting away with a sense of humor. And all they'd ever known was a kid who just didn't look at you and who didn't talk. So that was a joyous story. And hopefully she now has a path in her life.
How transformational. And you know, the topic today, of course, is treating each other with mutual respect. And we all know how animals recoil from us if they are mistreated, but we don't always necessarily take on board how much what we expect of a child or anyone in that matter shapes how they respond to us. And so how are you working on building confidence and helping them feel a sense of progression? I believe it's some sort of system. Yeah.
Just as we work at the horse's pace, so when we have, I mean, for example, we had a mare who had been beaten and beaten and beaten, and she arrived, we rescued her with a tether around her neck. It took us 9 months to get that tether off. You work very, very, very slowly. So with the children, it's the same. You know, some of them, as I said before, don't even want to get out of the car. When they get out of the car, then they don't want to touch a horse. And you just allow them to relax, allow them to develop. And it's all about not saying to the children, we're going to do mindfulness. Instead, you say, do you want to go in with the horses? And they usually nod and say yes. So you say, right, And then you teach them a breathing technique. And you say, shut your eyes and just listen for 30 seconds. So what you're doing is you're engaging them with their bodies and with the senses. And you're putting them in the moment. You're taking them out of their heads. And after a while, they start to understand that they can actually control their own thoughts. They can control their emotions. Because after all, it's the only thing in life we can control is our own thoughts. Sometimes it feels impossible, but actually that is the truth. And then they begin to just, a light bulb goes off sometimes and they start to have confidence. And then a child who didn't want to get out of the car, who then gets out of the car, who then starts working with the Shetland ponies, who then moves on to the mares, who are a bit bigger than the Shetlands, and who then leads a big horse. I mean, the same child that didn't want to get out of the car was leading the mare, who arrived and took 9 months to let us touch her the other day. And I don't see a child leading a horse because, you know, anyone can, a lot of horse people go, was a child leading a horse, so what? I see the journey those two creatures, because we are creatures, those two individuals have been on, and it fills me with huge joy because they've helped each other.
Fantastic. Well, I'm thrilled you managed to make it back with the Wi-Fi blip there. Luke, over to you again.
Yeah, super. Thank you. Yeah, amazing story, Jenny. So just a question that's still on topic, but a little bit more geared towards you. Obviously, you are a huge champion for animals, a hero to many for the world of animal rights, but you must have some heroes and animal champions yourself. Who do you look up to and where do you take a lot of your inspiration from?
Well, the obvious answer is Sir Richard Attenborough, but less obvious, but probably to those who know her, hugely obvious, is Virginia McKenna, who started the Born Free Foundation, is a close personal friend, and she's just an inspiration to me. I remember when she asked me, because I'm a trustee of the board of Born Free, she asked me, she had me over to her beautiful house and talked to me about it. And I said, Ginny, how do you cope with all the suffering and all the pain? And she said, you can't cope. You can't let it take you over. You have to just do what you can do. And the little things that you can do add up. And I've held that as a sort of mantra for myself, because sometimes, and I read Nicky Campbell, another wonderful human being with animals. He actually was outside, I think it was Euston Station, when he just broke down because he'd heard of some elephants who had been killed by a train, I think it was, and he couldn't bear it anymore. And you realize that you can't do everything. I can't save the planet, but by the choices I make, I can do my bit. And by the way I live my life, perhaps I can inspire other people. So I feel like I'm a pebble. I throw myself into the pond and hopefully some ripples go out and people go, oh, that's nice, I'll try that.
We actually had Virginia and her son Will on here a couple of weeks ago, so it was a real pleasure to meet them both. And yeah, what a fantastic,
truly inspirational, truly and absolutely inspirational. She should be a Dane.
Yeah. And then last quick question from me, a bit of a cheesy one, but do you have a favorite animal and why?
Oh, do you mean out of all the animals I've had, do I have a favorite pet, or do I have a favorite species of animal?
Favorite species.
Oh, that's impossible. That is totally impossible. I would have instantly said dog, but I have to now add to it horse, and I have to add elephants.
Yeah.
Elephants are extraordinary. The family groups they live in and the beautiful way they live their lives. They're just inspirations to us, but dogs have been so much a part of my life that, okay, narrow me down, dogs.
We can get 3. Super. Over to you, Nikki.
So Jenny, we talked about finding sanctuary in the natural world, and you mentioned David Attenborough just then. And of course, he's doing, he spent his lifetime dedicated to waking us up to how we're not necessarily respecting our natural world enough to go find sanctuary anymore. So tell us a little bit about your personal beliefs in how you feel we take responsibility for some of those choices.
I think lockdown has made it open people's eyes in that a lot of people have been taking exercise out in the local parks and the woods and the fields around them. And there's been a lot of anxiety in lockdown, and people have actually gone, gosh, walking has really helped me. Being outside in nature, looking around at the first signs of spring coming or hearing the birds has really helped. Now, that's something I've always known, and I lived in London for many, many years, and I used to go for walks, and just a little flower growing in the pavement would inspire me some days. And it's not just about what you see around you. It's not just about whether you garden or where you walk. It's about the choices you make in your life. You know, do you choose biscuits to eat that have been grown with palm oil that's not farmed sustainably? Everything has a consequence these days. You know, we truly are global, and the green belt is shrinking. People talk about mental health, but if we lose the green belt, then there'll be nowhere for people to go to get sanctuary. And yet people need homes. So the whole thing needs a massive rethink. You know, I'm a huge fan of the estates that are being rewilded. There's one down in Sussex, and now I believe there's one in Herefordshire. You know, as much as people can rewild and biodiversify, the better. There's a farm in California where a couple was being evicted from their flat because their dog barked all day. And so they bought this arid area of land outside California, and it's now a benchmark of organic, sustainable, biodiverse farming. And it's a fascinating place. And we just have to do more of that. Sir Richard said, if we actually put no-go, no fishing areas around parts of our oceans, the rest of them would start to bloom again. So these are things that our world leaders have to engage with. And I did take some supper. I met Mark Carney, who was the Bank of England chief of the banking, and he's now very, very high up in, I think, the World Trade Organization, advising on environmental things. And he cheered me up because he said they are leading businesses towards environmentally and planet-friendly models. So people are, but we just need to do it faster, I think.
Yeah, I know that I personally find a lot of sanctuary in being out in nature, Jenny, and I think the more we can do, invest in protecting that. I've been one of those people that's discovered gardening, and you know, there's so much we can even do, even with a flower box, to attract the bees, and you know, there's always ways, aren't there? But going back to the being out in nature and how much that helps us, I've personally found a lot of help around grieving. And Richard Green has actually put a question in here, coming back to the animals and finding that link again, about this terrible upsurge during the pandemic of theft of dogs and people losing their pets generally. And the fact that, you know, how does this help? What can we do, you know, to make sure that we help these people? And is nature, in fact, a good answer to finding some peace with that?
First of all, you have to take all precautions not to have your dog stolen. So never leave it outside a shop, never leave it in a car. If you've got a garden that has access, make sure the dogs are never unattended. And when you're walking, be aware of who's around you, because people use all sorts of tricks. You know, they'll come in pairs. One will distract you, the other one will take your dog. And I mean, if anyone took my dogs, I don't know how I would cope. Losing a family pet or losing an animal that you care for it is like losing a member of your family. They are sentient beings. They become so much a part of us. And I do find that going out and being at peace in the natural world and allowing my senses to fill up with the birds, with the insects, with other dogs is hugely helpful. And in time, you know, if you can, you replace the animal. You never replace it. You get another one, you help her. And I always think it's best to get a rescued animal because there are so many that need help. But the upsurge in animal stealing is truly shocking, and it's because everybody's buying dogs for lockdown company, and there's a value to them. And it should be, I think the law should change. If people are caught having stolen dogs, they should be put in prison for a minimum of 10 years.
Luke.
Super. So yeah, a question from me, Jenny, is you said that your mother was a huge source of inspiration for a lot of your work, but also do you think that growing up and living in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, played a big part in it as well, culturally? And do you think that we do enough here in our education system to encourage young people and all people to have a love for animals as well as each other?
I'm not sure how much living in Asia actually did in terms of education. I mean, I used to go and we'd walk in the jungle, so I'd chase butterflies and I'd look around me. And as I said, I was privileged to play with orphaned brown bears and orangutans. But in this country, do we do enough in our education? No, I don't think we do. But then our education in this country is based on the intellect. It's based on achievement and learning. And my feeling is that we should widen it to include emotional resilience and interaction and communication and all of the things that make us rounded human beings. And that includes how we treat animals and the natural world, because I truly believe that if we can treat other sentient beings around us with care and respect, then we can actually extend that to people. I don't know many people who love animals who don't also really care about other human beings. Some people find it hard to communicate because humans have hurt them, and so they retreat into the animal world. But most people I know who have pets are kind, caring human beings. Of course, you can't, paint everybody like that. But I think that our education system could be a lot more emotionally IQ rounded rather than just based on learning, subjects that actually quite a lot we won't use moving forward.
Yeah, and maybe in the future there could be potential for the work that you do to find itself on the curriculum somewhere for schools across England would be the dream.
Oh, well, I'd love that. Well, also at Main Chance, we've started using the AQA Awards, which are for children who aren't doing so well at school, and they come to us and they literally, you can enter at basic entry level and it goes right up to level 2, which is quite complicated. And they learn literally how to head collar a horse, right up to how to deal with the horse that's got laminitis and all the technical things. And they get certificates of achievement. And for some children, that's the first time they've actually achieved anything. And you can see them kind of puffing out, going, gosh, I've done that. And at the heart of our AQA, because we've written them all ourselves, in line with the system, which is a nationally acknowledged system, is our horse care, which is treat a horse with care and consideration, or an animal, because we also do it for our dogs and our hens.
Brilliant. And then last question from me, in terms of Rotary. So you have a Rotary connection, which I believe is your father, and you've been very involved with the Jaipur Limb project. So could you tell us a little bit about those two things?
Yeah, my dad and I believe my grandfather, but my dad was certainly a Rotary member and very proud of it. And I've been asked to be a part of Rotary Jaipur Limb, which is an amazing branch of Rotary. They're always at the forefront of technology. They're just trialing some smart spectacles. I think they're produced by a company called Iris Stick, and it means that they can train people. It's being trialed in Ethiopia, and they can train people remotely. And I know that there's quite a lot of political turmoil in Ethiopia, so that's a really important thing to be able to do, and it'll save on costs. And in India, in Bangalore, they're trialing the digital, what's it called? The digital, It will mean that limbs can be made much easier, and it'll mean that each limb costs 75% less. And at the next meeting, they'll be able to give amputees and polio sufferers limbs to over 1,000 people. And it's just extraordinary. This is all new technology, and it's happening thanks to Rotary, and they're making such a difference. And, you see a video of a young lad with no legs comes in, and bless him, he's pulling himself along with flip-flops on his hands, and his legs are fitted, and he's running down the corridor. Who wouldn't want to be part of that?
Yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely. Jenny, you obviously are an individual with a numerous amount of passions, and you must have a lot of hard work juggling all of those. And of course, you've not finished acting either. You still are acting. So tell us a little bit about your future plans before we wrap up, if we could. How you want to continue to balance and what you still feel you want to do going forward.
It's a tough one, because I love acting. It is my career. It's my identity. But an equal part of my life is giving back, and Main Chance and the other charities I work for, trying to give a voice for the voiceless. Just before lockdown, I was about to start doing Hamlet on stage with Sir Ian McKellan, which is a gender blind, colour blind and age blind production. That didn't happen. Then my partner, bless him, did a few weeks in August, September, and Martin Shaw and I opened up at the Theatre Royal in Love Letters. And then it was so successful, he took us to the Theatre Royal Haymarket, where we got 5-star reviews everywhere, and then that got shut down. So here we are back in lockdown with all of our gear back at the Theatre Royal Haymarket, waiting for us to go back. And that may not happen. But March 22nd, we're about to start filming Hamlet at the Theatre Royal Windsor. And Sir Ian is playing Hamlet at the age of 82, and I'm playing his mother. And it's going to be incredibly exciting. And then when we finish that, because you can film now, you can't do theatre, but you can film, then we will do Hamlet on stage and follow it with the Cherry Orchard. At which point I will be playing Gaiaf, who happens to be a man. And I can't tell you how excited I am about that. And then there are other projects in the pipeline for beyond that. But, you know, an awful lot of it depends on the government and how quickly they allow the arts back. And, for my friends and colleagues, it can't come soon enough.
Super. So before we close, just an acting question from me then. Do you have a favourite play?
I've done a few comedies in my life, and I love making people laugh. And probably the most fun one, actually there were two, How the Other Half Loves was an Acheborn, and Fallen Angels, which I did with Sarah Crowe. To hear the audience gasping for breath because they're laughing so much was one of the most joyous things I have ever been able to do. And it was heaven.
Yeah, brilliant. Super. So I'm really sorry to say we're out of time. It goes so quickly, and almost blinked and it was over. But thank you so much for joining us, Jenny. Tonight's been packed with so much important information on such an important topic. Before we finally end, can we please ask you to share your 3 key takeaways that you'd like us all to act on, please?
Oh, gosh. Try to make a difference, and remember that every choice you make, however small, makes a difference. So be careful with your choices. Treat animals with respect, and what you'll find is what you get back from them is multiplied. But never mind what you get back, just treat them with respect and consideration, and be kind to yourself. If you're kind to yourself, you can be kind to other people, but it starts with you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And I loved how the theme also came out of today about the importance of laughing as well, and what a good medicine that can be, which ties us back into our talk with Esther not so long ago. So just that, the fact that the animals took the animals to remind us to do that, we should make sure we do that more often. That's a lot to do with being kind. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jenny.
Take
care.
So given that Rotary International's 7th and latest area of focus is supporting the environment, I think Jenny's given us a great deal of thought-provoking facts and insights, as well as tools for us to how to consider ways in which we can work together with nature. Take care, right? That's wonderful. Take care of each other.
Super. Thanks, Nikki. So just as you thought it couldn't get any better, we have a fantastic talk for you coming up on the 30th of March. We'll be joined by Dr. John Blakey, founder and CEO of the Trusted Executive, an organization set up to support CEOs and business leaders to deliver outstanding results, build inspiring relationships, and make a positive contribution to society. John is a talented author, conference speaker, and of course, founder of the Trusted Executive, and will offer an incredibly interesting insight into the need for leaders to believe in the power of trust instead of trusting in power.
Thanks, Luke. So let us end by thanking the audience again for being with us tonight. And we would like to remind you that tonight's broadcast, along with all of series 1, 2, and the other ones of 3, are available on demand on our Rotary in Great Britain YouTube channel, as Luke in fact mentioned earlier. So please do go there and like, subscribe, and share. So until March 30th then, it's good night from me.
And good night from me.